You know that person who laughs at absolutely everything. The one who can crack a joke in situations where most people would completely fall apart. And you think, how are they so calm about this? How are they smiling right now? Here's the uncomfortable truth. People who laugh like that usually didn't have an easy life. They didn't just stumble into resilience. They earned it. And not from something small. Not from a bad grade or an awkward phase. I'm talking about the kind of experiences that quietly, permanently rewire how you see the world. When someone cuts them off in traffic, do they explode with rage? No. Their brain is already doing something else. They're 3 steps ahead, wondering if that driver is stressed, late, grieving, or just barely holding it together. Not because they're saints. But because once you've survived your own storms, other people's rain doesn't feel the same. Here's what nobody tells you about people who've gone through too much. Their brain doesn't work the way it used to. And it's not broken. It's trained. Trained by necessity to survive in environments where safety wasn't guaranteed. Where unpredictability was normal. Where calm was temporary. Their nervous system learned lessons early. Lessons like, stay alert. Adapt quickly. Don't assume things will be okay. So now, even when the danger is gone, the system keeps running. They don't just react to life. They anticipate it. And beneath that calm exterior, something else happens. They develop what almost looks like immunity to chaos. Not immunity to pain. They still feel pain deeply. But immunity to being destroyed by it. They've learned something most people haven't had to learn yet. That survival isn't just possible. It's inevitable. And here's where psychology gets interesting. You'd expect someone who's been through hell to be bitter. Closed off. Cynical. But often, the opposite happens. They become deeply, sometimes aggressively empathetic. They can sense pain in others almost instantly. A shift in tone. A forced smile. A pause that lingers too long. They've learned the language of suffering fluently. They don't just hear words. They hear what's behind them. They can read silence. Not just the absence of sound, but its texture. Whether it's heavy, exhausted, disappointed, or quietly breaking. Most people walk into a room and notice the furniture. People who've gone through too much notice the emotional temperature. They feel when something's off before anyone says a word. And strangely, something beautiful grows out of all this. Psychologists call it post-traumatic growth. Research by Richard Tedeschi shows that a large percentage of people who experience deep trauma don't just recover. They transform. Their relationships deepen. Their priorities become painfully clear. Their appreciation for small moments becomes intense. They cry at sunsets. They pause during quiet mornings. They notice things others rush past. Not because they're fragile, but because they know how easily things can disappear. But there's a cost nobody prepares you for. Hypervigilance. Their threat detection system never fully turns off. They like sitting where they can see the door. They plan for scenarios most people never consider. They have backup plans for situations that don't need them. And it's not paranoia. It's a nervous system that learned, very early, that safety is not a guarantee. It's a temporary condition. Another thing you'll notice. They downplay their own pain constantly. It wasn't that bad. Others have it worse. I'm fine. They say it so convincingly that you believe them. But what's really happening is survival logic. They survived by minimizing their own needs. By staying functional. By telling themselves they were okay. So admitting struggle now feels like failure. Like weakness. Like undoing everything they worked so hard to hold together. There's a cruel irony in that. Let's talk about relationships. People who've gone through too much often become either incredibly loyal or emotionally distant. Sometimes both. They'll show up for you without hesitation. In emergencies. In crises. At impossible hours. But ask them to open up about their own needs. Suddenly they're busy. Distracted. Independent. Not because they don't care. But because closeness once came with consequences. When early connection taught you that love could be unpredictable, your nervous system doesn't relax with intimacy. It braces. So they learn to need no one. And that sounds strong. Until you realize how lonely it can be. But here's the part most people miss. These individuals are exceptionally adaptable. Change doesn't scare them the way it scares others. New job. New city. Life collapsing unexpectedly. They've been here before. And the humor is sharp. Dark humor. Quiet humor. Humor that makes some people uncomfortable. It's not about being insensitive. It's about control. When you can laugh at what tried to break you, it loses power. Every joke becomes a small rebellion. Pain becomes something you can hold at arm's length. They also have a strange relationship with control. They'll obsess over small details. Tiny choices. Minor decisions. While staying eerily calm about massive uncertainty. Why? Because they learned early that the big things were often uncontrollable. Loss. Change. Chaos. So they manage what they can. They are paradoxes. Strong but soft. Guarded but generous. Hopeful but realistic. They understand that two opposite truths can exist at once. Life can be beautiful and brutal. Often in the same moment. But underneath all of this strength, there's something quieter. Grief. Not the grief of losing someone else. The grief of losing themselves. They grieve the version that trusted easily. The version that laughed without scanning the room. The version that didn't rehearse conversations in advance. They grieve a softness they didn't get to keep. A childhood they didn't fully live. A freedom they learned about too late. How do you explain that you miss a version of yourself you barely remember? How do you tell someone you're homesick for a place that only existed inside you? This grief doesn't break them. It shapes them. It makes them more intentional. More observant. More protective of peace. They value safe people because unsafe ones taught them the cost. And maybe that's the real psychology here. People who've gone through too much don't just survive. They develop a rare understanding of what it means to be human. They know strength isn't about never falling apart. It's about how many times you can reassemble yourself. Even when the pieces don't fit the same way anymore. Their pain became insight. Their survival became compassion. And without even realizing it, they became something rare. A lighthouse. Not because their life was gentle. But because they learned how to navigate storms. A lighthouse doesn't shine because it's perfect. It shines because it remembers the darkness. So when you meet someone who seems a little too calm in chaos, a little too quick to laugh at pain, a little too comfortable with uncertainty, just know. They've been through too much. And somehow, they're still here. Still trying. Still finding reasons to hope. That's not just psychology. That's poetry in motion. If this hit home, subscribe. And if you want to support these deep dives, hit the join button. I genuinely